Hey, it's Luke here. I'm a spiritual therapist that's combining psychology with spirituality to help you heal. In this video, I'm going to be pointing you to the cause of suffering and how to eliminate it in the fastest time possible by transcending thoughts. So if you've been watching me for a little while, you may now know what I do and what I'm teaching, which is that the majority of the suffering that we humans experience come from this one ingredient to the human mind, and it is thoughts. It's what I call the thinking mind. This incessant noise machine that's constantly chatting away from the moment your eyes open in the morning to the moment they close at night. This incessant background noise machine is constantly churning away, causing you a living hell. I will say that you are not actually seeing the world. You are seeing thoughts about the world, and that is very different. When you are able to lift this veil of conceptual thoughts and see the world as it is, rather than seeing thoughts about it, that is what the word liberation means, salvation, even enlightenment. All of these words point to this one possibility, and it's the ability to transcend the thinking mind, to step out of the incessant thought patterns constantly circling away in your mind, to be able to step out of them and find rest, find peace that exists behind consistent mental activity. So the reason why humans suffer so much is because the mind has not evolved to keep you happy, it has evolved to keep you alive. Its job is to constantly think about problems, because that's simply what it's evolved to do. In the same way your heart has evolved to keep pumping blood around your body, your mind has evolved to think about problems. So it will consistently bring up things from your past that you didn't like, so you can ruminate on them and think about how you can learn from them. Or it will think about your future events that could happen, that could go wrong. It will pinpoint every possible bad way in which your life could go, and it will bring that into your field of awareness, and it will play that in front of you so you can think about it and learn how to not make it happen. That's the mind's job. That's what it's evolved to do. Can you hear why suffering is inflicted on us humans so profoundly, so much? It's because this is the mind's job, to focus on the negative, to bring up problems and consistently ruminate on them. So even if you can't find an immediate problem, as we would have done in the past, there would have always been a problem in the past. We'd always had to have found water, go and hunt, go and find shelter, go and fight off predators. So there would have always been an immediate problem. So usually in our ancestors' times, this wouldn't have been too much of a problem because they would have been constantly kind of doing things and solving problems in the immediate surroundings. We humans today very rarely have an immediate problem. So the mind doesn't really know what to do with itself. So it's consistently then bringing up imaginary scenarios of futures to then start worrying about, or bringing up things from your past. The issue is there is very little you can do about an imagined problem. There is very little you can do about something from your past that has already happened and you can't do anything about it now. Can you hear that? So when the mind is bringing up these problems for you to focus on, there's nothing you can really do about them, so you're just consistently rethinking about them and suffering. The end of suffering comes when you learn to set this thinking mind aside. The freeing realization for a lot of people is to realize you are not your thinking mind, you are the one watching it. You are the one observing it. That is liberation, that is salvation. Because when you gain this ability to watch the mind and see how it does, when you begin to see the insanity of the human mind, that is the rising of sanity. You cannot be insane and know that you are insane. The moment you begin to recognize the insanity of the thinking mind, which it is insane, it's constantly inflicting suffering on you, it is insanity, complete insanity. But the moment you begin to see how insane this thinking mind is, and the way that it acts and the way it operates, as you begin to recognize that, that is the rising of sanity, because there is the awakening of you from thoughts. There is a separation beginning to happen. There is thoughts, the thinking mind, the problems that are consistently playing, and then there comes in a little space. There's a little stepping back from the thoughts where you are able to just see them and watch them, but no longer give them a heaviness and a reality that they don't have. Psychologists for many years have always used their most up-to-date technology to describe the human mind. Freud called it a steam engine. The one at the moment is the kind of computational model of the brain. I would describe it as a virtual reality headset. That is what the mind is. It's constantly playing in front of you images of imagined futures or things from your past, and it plays them in front of your field of awareness. The issue is that the body can't tell the difference between thinking about a future, thinking about the past, and the events actually presenting themselves to you. So your body reacts the same way. You can think about being homeless in 3 years' time, and your body starts to react as if that's about to happen. It's not happening now. Now you're in the present moment. But your mind has gone off into the future. There is a splitting of yourself where you are here, but the mind is in the future. That is the cause of anxiety. Can you hear that? So the essence of transcending thoughts, the essence of liberating yourself from suffering, is finding the peace of the here and now, to no longer take part in the insanity of the mind, which is to consistently think about, worry and ruminate on imagined problems in your surroundings in past and future, and to find what I call the rest of being. Being means to be fully one with the here and now without wanting to be anywhere else. It means to be fully one in the present moment without thoughts, without labels, without stories playing in your field of awareness. I often say that humans have a veil in front of their eyes that is causing suffering, a veil of thoughts. This is why your life appears to be horrific if it does, or suffering comes in if it does. It's because you are looking at the world through a veil, and this veil gets a little tint to it based on your past experiences. So if you've been through relatively bad past experiences, or extremely bad past experiences, this veil in front of your eyes develops a little tint to it, a little tone of negative light. Only certain light that matches that frequency, that tint, can get through. So if the veil starts to become tinting towards the negative, only negative light can come through. You'll only see the negatives in the world. Everything that you look at will become tainted with negative thinking patterns. This is why suffering arises. The reason why people feel depressed is because they have a veil in front of their eyes of a veil that is tinted with a depressive tone. So then as they're looking at the world, they are looking at everything through these depressive goggles, so they can't actually see the world. They are seeing the world through a hellish light. Can you hear that? You're not seeing the world, you are seeing depressive thoughts about it. Your thoughts are playing negatively, interpreting the world in a negative light, and your body can't tell the difference between these thoughts and actually seeing the world. So your body starts to fall depressed. In the same way with fear and anxiety, your veil is tainted with an anxious tone, so you only see threats, you only see fearful possibilities, most likely constantly going into the future and seeing constant worries and fears. That veil has tinted towards the fearful side of life, so that's all that you can see. The way out of suffering is lifting that veil. The reason why your life is meaningless is because that thought has popped up into your mind and you have believed it, then it is so. The reason why that you are a failure is because that thought has popped up into your mind, you have believed it, so then it is so. The reason that your life is worthless, the reason why you're worthless, the reason why all of these things are coming into your, presenting themselves to you, is because those thoughts have popped up into your mind, you have believed them, and then they are so. Liberation comes when you are able to step out of thoughts. No other animal on this planet, really, as far as we know, thinks, and they do okay. Imagine how the lion sees the world. Imagine how the cat sees the world. Imagine how the badger sees the world. What do you think that's like? They look at it, they observe their world, they watch it, but they don't know it. They don't interpret it. They don't label it. They just see it. That is where peace is found. When you regain this ability that we used to have, which is the ability to not label the world but just observe it. This is, of course, what the Adam and Eve story points to, as you may know now. It was never supposed to be taken as literal. It is a parable that points to the growth of thinking. Adam ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil and gained the knowledge of good and evil, rather than just observing the world as we would have done in our past ancestors' lives before thought came into our evolutionary journey. Before we evolved the thinking mind, we was like the other animals. We could just observe the world, look at it, but not know it. At some point over millions of years, eventually these little thoughts would have started to come up into our mind. The ability to interpret the world, to say that that's bad, that's good, that's wrong, that's evil, that's meaningless, I'm meaningless, I'm a failure, I'm no good. Can you hear that? As these thoughts started to rise into the mind, we started to suffer. And the issue for humans is that they've become entrapped in the knowing. That's all that they can see. They can't sense the peace behind knowing, the peace behind thoughts. There lies liberation. The ability to for momentarily see through, see past thoughts, and rather than being trapped in consistent labeling and storytelling and thinking, you can momentarily set the mind aside, set thinking aside, and again, just observe. Outside of the thinking mind, things just are. Things just exist. It is. That's all we can say about it. No labels. It is as it is. Can you feel even slightly, if you were to look at the world like that, and to simply say, it is as it is, and to accept that, and to allow it to be, without the mental chatter, just to look at the world. You can practice as you're listening to me speak, just look at your surroundings. Imagine you're like the badger, or the oak tree, or the lion, and just look at your surroundings without giving it a label, to just say it is as it is, and to accept that just for now. Just look. Give attention to no other moment, no future moment for now, no past moment for now, just this one, the present moment, just observing it. How does it feel to do that? How does it feel to be one with the present moment and not add thoughts? If the mind tries to jump in and label it, notice that, watch it, see what it does. See how the mind constantly labels. It's not good enough. My apartment's not good enough. I haven't got enough money. I have to think about my job tomorrow because it's going to be stressful. I haven't done this, so I've got to... All of that stuff that the mind does, just see that and what it does. Notice that that's what it does, but notice that you are also the one watching it. And then as that watcher comes in, make the decision to set the mind aside just for now, and again, enter the present moment. End the illusion of time, because there is no time. There's no past and future for you right now. There's just this moment. The present moment is where your entire life unfolds. It is the playground where life happens. So look at it. See that the present moment is all that there is. There's no other moment right now. And as you do that, hopefully, you can begin to sense a very profound truth, which is that the majority of the time, you are actually perfectly safe and perfectly okay. Suffering comes in as the mind starts up again. Have you noticed? The mind starts up and starts talking away. It starts bringing you off into the future again, off into the past again, labeling yourself, labeling other people, seeing other people and the world in a negative, hellish light. The truth is that is your mind's interpretation of the world. It's not the world. One thing I say very often is that humans never left the Garden of Eden. If we think about that parable, humans never left it. This is the Garden of Eden. Go and look at a tree. Go and look at nature. Go and look at the profound, the beauty of nature out there, and just look at it. Humans never left the Garden of Eden. It is in front of you right now. You just can't see it because your mind is making too much noise. Your mind is just so noisy, you can't get out of it. Liberation comes when you are able to, which comes from hearing the truths behind the words that I'm saying. Not thinking about what I'm saying, but hearing the truth, which is that you are not your thinking mind. You are not your thoughts. You are the one watching them. And that who is doing the watching is what we could call presence, or what I often call light. It is consciousness freed from thoughts. There is thoughts, but there is also an essence of yourself that is the one hearing them, the one listening to them. Which one are you? I would suggest you're not your thoughts. Of course you're not. They're constantly changing. There's one here, it'll pass by, and another one will come in again. I call them dead thoughts, thoughts that are just constantly circling through your mind. The same thoughts over and over again, every single day, just constantly thinking the same thoughts all the time. As a momentary gap comes in between your thoughts, a momentary ability to watch how this mind operates, that is consciousness freed from thinking. Thinking can quieten, yet you don't lose consciousness. You have a silent mind, and you're able to just see and observe and look. That is what all spiritual texts, all religions have pointed you to. The works of Jesus, the works of the Buddha, all of the profound Indian spiritual texts, all of them point you to this one essence, which is the ability to have a cessation in thinking, a moment of no thought, yet you don't lose consciousness. In fact, you become more conscious. This is what's happening around the world today. Humans are gaining this ability to transcend the thinking mind, to see its incessant destructive nature and to no longer take part in it. Presence, light, is who you are. It is consciousness, not thought. It is formless consciousness, not matter. So it's not thought forms, it's not the body, it's not your personality, it's not the roles that you carry out in this world. Behind all of those things is a consciousness experiencing them. That is what all of these texts have always pointed to. In the same way, they might have used different words. They didn't have the word consciousness back then. They would have used the word spirit. They would have used the word God and all of those things. In essence, that's what they're pointing you to. It is the ability to step out of the incessant thinking mind and to watch it, to set it aside, to no longer be identified with it, but to see yourself as the watcher, as one with consciousness itself. And that consciousness is the same consciousness in me, in you, in the trees. It is oneness, one life. That is the liberation from suffering. So, as I often always say, even if this feels difficult at the moment, if you're watching this and you're still watching this, then you'll know what I'm talking about. It's happening to you. The awakening is happening. At least you know this is a possibility. That's what I always say. At least you know that this is possible. Psychologists and philosophers for many, many years, thousands of years, have argued for the meaning of life and what the purpose of suffering is. And they've always said, pretty much, that the purpose of suffering is to find meaning in the suffering. So they pretty much always said, many of them have always said, the suffering just makes the good better. And that never worked for me, because I didn't want the suffering. I always used to say that. I just used to say, I don't want the suffering. So the good doesn't outweigh the bad. So all of those philosophies and ideas never really worked for me. Now I know, and I can tell you as well, which is that the purpose of suffering is not just to find the meaning or to make the good better because you've suffered. The purpose of suffering is to use it to push you deeper for the possibility of transcending and liberating yourself from suffering. It is perfectly possible to live in this world without suffering. It takes a bit of time to develop, but the moment consciousness awakens, becomes more conscious, frees itself from the illusory thoughts in your mind of potentially fearful futures, worries of your past, as that begins to transcend the mind, you are liberating yourself from suffering. And the natural state of consciousness without thoughts is peace. Peace is not an emotion. Peace is who you are. Peace is the natural state of your being. Emotions are things that disturb that. And the things that cause your emotions are your thoughts. Very often. Yes, some things around you can happen sometimes, but for the majority of the time it is the incessant thoughts playing in your mind that are disturbing your natural state, as if the rocks are being thrown into the lake, causing disturbances, causing ripples. The purpose of these practices, the purpose of these teachings, the purpose of what I'm showing you is the ability to still the lake, to bring it back to its natural state, which is peace. And that comes from transcending and slowing down the mind, which comes from moving into the present moment. Because the more conscious you become of the present moment, you are withdrawing consciousness from thinking, you are entering the here and now, you are transcending thought. That is liberation, and there lies peace. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope it's been helpful. If it has, please leave a like, please comment, please subscribe. Let me know any questions that you might have, you want me to answer in future videos. Keep following along, keep remaining present, and I'll see you in a video very soon.